So, folks, we have to talk about how Ken Martin, head of the DNC, how his proverbial dog ate his homework when it came to the 2024 autopsy. This is a really big deal, and I'll explain what I mean in a moment. But Ken Martin was elected to be head of the DNC in order to have a competent set of leadership skills at the helm to pilot the DNC through choppy waters, as it were. Like it was intended for him because Ken Martin was in charge of a lot of Democratic activity in Minnesota for a very long time, and is credited with keeping Minnesota blue, right? And he got elected in this fraught internal election within the DNC, and it turns out that he might not be as competent as many establishment Democrats wanted us to feel he was. All right. So Ken Martin, for months now, has been delaying the 2024 autopsy report. This is a report that the DNC commissioned in order to go over what happened in the 2024 election, why Democrats didn't win, and how Democrats can fix those problems going forward. It's a pretty important job. It's a pretty important fact-finding mission. It is a very important thing. He campaigned on releasing it, and I've done videos of this in the past, which on the topic of why is he not releasing it. In particular, about a month ago, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, Ken Martin went on the Pod Save America podcast and was just repeatedly asked, like, why aren't you releasing this? And just gave bizarro answers about how, well, the autopsy, the report is the lessons that they've been releasing, but no one gets to see the data because, haha, you don't get it. As more details of the report got leaked, Ken Martin got put into a position to basically be like, okay, yeah, fine, here's the entire thing. So he did that last night. And here is his statement. When I was elected DNC chair, I commissioned an after-action review of the 2024 election that I wanted to be honest and transparent, and with actionable and specific takeaways for the future of the Democratic Party. When I received the report late last year, it wasn't ready for prime time, not even close. Because no source material was provided, it would have meant starting over. I could not, in good faith, put the DNC's stamp of approval on that report, on the report that was produced. After last November's massive Democratic wins, I didn't want to create a distraction. But by not putting the report out, I ended up creating an even bigger distraction. For that, I sincerely apologize. For full transparency, I am releasing the report as we received it in its entirety, unedited and unabridged. It does not meet my standards, and it won't meet your standards. But I am doing this because people need to be able to trust the Democratic Party and trust our word. Which is a very rich thing for him to say, after breaking his word repeatedly for months and lying about why he was doing so. I want to talk a little bit here because with the report not released, many people were coming to their own conclusions. Like, oh, maybe they came up with really damning evidence for like moderate Democrats. Maybe it is just like really embarrassing, like, oh, we have to pivot farther to the right, very clearly invoking like neoliberalism and Reagan and shit. Like, what could it be? Why aren't they releasing it? Well, I've looked over the first several pages of it just to kind of get an idea and like flick through it as well. And I gotta tell you guys, it is an embarrassing clusterfuck. Okay? To be completely honest with you. And we're gonna go over this, but I want to start from a point of saying Ken Martin needs to resign. He is not the guy that can get us through Democrats going into an era of political street fighting with the Republican fascist movement. Like, it is just not the kind of leadership that can successfully get us through a time of intense political conflict. like he needs to resign, and someone who is willing to actually fight for folks competently needs to take his place. Because some additional background is that apparently the DNC paid no money for this report. Apparently one of Ken Martin's friends, a Democratic strategist from outside the Democratic Party, did this report. And the level of incompetence on display in this report is like people need to lose their jobs over it. Like it's not okay, right? Even David Hogg is coming out of the woodwork now to also say Ken Martin should resign. I'm far from the only person saying it. But to give you guys an idea of how bad this is, all right? I am going to walk you through some of the initial pages of this, okay?
Kinda makes you wish someone like a Keith Ellison or a David Hogg was working in the DNC as chair or something.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? It would have been really great if Ken Martin hadn't banished David Hogg from the DNC. So we have this. You might be saying, but Jack, this is just a blank page. And it should be noted, first of all, Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Every page has this disclaimer at the top. Disclaimer. This document reflects the views of the author, not the DNC. The DNC was not provided with the underlying sourcing, interviews, or supporting data for many of the assertions contained herein, and therefore cannot independently verify the claims presented. And you might notice that the very first words on this page are title page, because this report was never finished. This report was never finished. They left in outline shit. What the fuck is this? Yeah, it's clown shit. That's what it is. Build to Win, Built to Last is the title of it. Then you get to the second page, which is leadership message, and you'll note that the second page is entirely blank, because there is no leadership message included in this. This report has entire sections of it missing. Then you have, of course, the table of contents, introduction, executive summary, electoral landscape, what happened, electoral review, state of media and communication, state of research and strategy, state of organizing and advocacy, state of technology and data, fundraising analysis, spending analysis, conclusion, appendices, notes for the reader, and sources. We finally get to some text here. And it's the introduction. Introduction. In every election cycle, the 2 major parties and hundreds of outside groups invest enormous resources and energy trying to define the terrain for voter choice. What happens at the presidential level certainly impacts down-ballot contests, yet candidates across the ballot in both parties will seek to define the choices for voters in their specific elections. From those choices, the voters decide which choice is the most resonant. One party declares itself the winner, and the other party declares that the fight is far from finished. Effective parties, understanding history rarely repeats itself, it does often rhyme, make it a point to study electoral outcomes after each election, each cycle, to identify potential improvements to every aspect of their campaigns. Now, what's interesting here is that there are words missing in this sentence. We're in the second paragraph. Effective parties, comma, understanding history rarely repeats itself, comma, it does often rhyme, comma, this is not a sentence. This is not competent writing. And not only that, this is a report for internal use within the DNC that they pledged to then release to the public, right? And going into this report, they knew that was what it was for. Why is this introduction covering basic bitch politics? The summary is blowing my mind. Yeah. And then you have, after this sentence, a multi-space for no reason. John Adams argued, quote, liberty, and again, no comma here. You'll notice throughout this, it is riddled with spelling, grammatical errors, punctuation errors. Is this the draft? This is the draft. Liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people who have a right and a desire to know.
In the Democratic National Committee, the voters are represented by two separate, yet equal groups. The donors that pay us, and the reps that serve them.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, and thank you for queuing me up for awesome sound bits. And also, thank you for financially supporting this stream. Sake Tanuki single-handedly taking all chats on his back. And, like, I'm not going to read out all of this to you guys, but, like, I want you to see how long it takes in this introduction to get to anything remotely relevant to the 2024 election, right? This desire to know, to understand what is going well and needs to be maintained, along with understanding what is not working and needs to evolve, is at the heart of any substantive effort to evaluate the relative impact of strategies and tactics tied to a specific election cycle and specific candidate matchup in order to generate insights about what happened. A thorough review can provide a blueprint for future campaigns, establishing a series of lessons learned to drive continuous improvement to future efforts. In this regard, the 2024 election was no different from any other. There were many dramatic moments framing the narrative of the national campaign, thousands of candidates seeking support from voters, and billions of dollars spent across the ballot and throughout the electoral ecosystem to advance particular interests. There are many books already written, and many more to come, presenting analyses of what happened for both sides, the efficacy of the strategies advanced, decisions made, and actions taken during the presidential campaign. Have we gotten to any, like, actual useful information? I'm losing my fucking mind, right? People have been waiting like 1.5 years for this. These analyses, in order to present a thorough picture of the will of the people and the choices they made, must extend beyond the presidential campaign to include those strategies, decisions, and actions taken by other federal, state, and local candidates on ballots nationwide to examine why so many were able to succeed where others came up short. Understanding that little d, democracy, is the will of the people, and big D, democracy, represents the systems and structures in place to advance or inhibit the will of the people. There must also be a review and analysis of the systemic and structural issues, some going back more than a decade, which have impacted electoral outcomes at every level.
This sounds like a dictator speech in 1939.
It does, but I'm trying to invoke maybe a different vibe. I'm seeing how many of you can pick up on it. Thank you for the $10 super chat, though, Attack on Pony Productions. These issues can inhibit the evolution of democracy and limit the reach and success of the Democratic Party. Unfortunate reductions in support and training for our state parties, consequential shifts in voter registration, a loss of partisan organizing capacity, and a persistent inability or unwillingness to listen to all voters has provided the other major party with opportunities for advancement at the expense of democratic growth, evolution, and ability to find common ground, with seemingly disparate groups of voters from coast to coast, and the heartland Democrats tend to ignore. Historically, Democrats have held the advantage in each of these areas. The Democratic Party has always tried to be seen as the party of the people, the party of workers, fair play and civil discourse. The party's connections with working Americans and their families were forged through decades of organizing and engagement. The development of a vibrant and inclusive party infrastructure and relatable agenda, which helped us connect in homes, workplaces, and neighborhoods across the country. This report explores the depth and breadth of how we lost these relationships by examining both the candidate-specific circumstances and the overall trending away from effective and accountable politicking, and seeks to expound on the combination of strategic, tactical, and organizing improvements Democrats need to form an effective, durable majority party strategy. So far, I have read you guys about 1.5 pages of this intro. What of substance has been shared? What exactly? Yeah, nothing. Exactly. It has said nothing. Nothing at all. I see some of you are already realizing what is happening here, in my estimation. It somehow gets worse. I want to read the following 2 sections, okay, of this introductory area. so bear with me. Why now? Like, including in the introduction to this report a why now section genuinely feels like salt in the wound, because anyone reading a 2024 autopsy of what went wrong understands why we're reading an autopsy right now for what happened in 2024. But let's see if maybe this report manages to figure out why it's coming out right now. Democracy is a very old institution, and yet what keeps democracy going is the ability of those who seek to lead to look at the data and determine the source of success as well as setbacks. This after-action report specifically aims to identify and elaborate upon the actions the Democratic Party must take after what happened in the 2024 cycle. The report identifies the programs and priorities for consideration and implementation to build our party, to win over the next 10 years, and to again become the party of the people well into the future. This report includes a thorough evaluation of voter behavior in the context of the individual level collection of voter contact data and localized demographic data. The analyses aim to identify gaps in participation, determine the correlation between the frequency and distribution of partisan voter contact, and declare the urgent steps needed to reclaim our strength in engaging voters across the nation. In simple terms, this report follows the money, identifying the top spenders and vendors in both parties, offering insights into where the money went, including who benefited and what issues were prioritized. From there, it presents an exploration of the context and composition of campaign spending for each office, the roles and impact of allied spending, and the volume of independent expenditures in the ecosystem. To examine the reach of the party, this report evaluates comparative and competitive media spending, the mix of broadcast and digital investment, and the need for greater innovation and experimentation in sharing the Democratic story with more voters, and to greater effect and impact. Finally, this report assesses the state of data and technology, with recommendations to ensure the security and resiliency of our critical infrastructure, and opportunities to improve tools and tech to meet the needs of modern, vibrant campaigns. A relevant and modern party must imbue its operations with resilient and robust digital operations to effectively present a unifying declaration to voters. We, the people, is not a new idea, but an enduring philosophy, meant to include each generation and every available innovation in its design and operation. Now this is where we get to methodology, which very notably here has an important note from the DNC in red. The report analyzes a range of publicly and commercially available data, and the DNC responds to this by saying, no source material or data provided, unsourced claims cannot be independently verified. Meaning, nothing in this report is backed up by any kind of investigation or any kind of citation to credible sources. No part of this report has anything linking it to the real world.
Wow. This is worthless.
Stygian Skunk, yes. Yes, it is worthless, right? Because what data did they use to assemble any of their conclusions? We don't know! And I gotta be honest, it's here where I say, oh, this entire thing is AI generated. One guy wrote a 192-page report for the DNC for free. There are really only a couple ways you can explain that. One is that there's some other kind of compensation going on between the DNC and this Democratic strategist who wrote this. Or he just half-assed it with AI and thought it was good enough.
Think about the consultants. Why won't anyone think about the consultants?
Sake Tanuki, the poor beleaguered consultants of Washington. They need assistance. They need help. Will you remember me? I will remember you. Your donations today can mean the difference between a DNC consultant making $10 million a year like a peasant or $100 million a year like they deserve. Help a DNC consultant out today. so that they don't have to live in a box that's a mere 15,000 square feet. I need to have like a sad song on my on my soundboard. Oh god. The only sad song I have is this one.
Live from the Polymarket studio in LA.
God. And then we get down to the executive summary, which is page 7, which this section was not provided by the author. So we just have multiple missing sections, and we're only 7 pages into this gigantic pile of shit. Yeah, this is so much worse than I thought too. Like, I thought this was political corruption, right? Like, I thought Ken Martin had given his buddy money to write this report, and then, like, the report just, like, was shit and not really useful, or was very clearly politically biased to the degree that, like, Ken Martin couldn't use it. I thought it was something like that. I did not have my money on it is just so dog shit incompetent that it's literally missing sections, as if Ken Martin's dog ripped sections out of his homework. I think Ken Martin made an excellent choice in doing everything in his power not to release this. I mean, at this point, right? Like, if he had this report compiled and given to him by late last year, it doesn't even take, like, reading through this entire thing. If he had just read through the amount we've read through right now in real time, the very first thing, if I'm Ken Martin, the very first thing I do is call up people who actually do shit, like people who actually, like, make reports like this and investigate reports and, like, put out useful, actionable, like, results from that. I call up the best person in Washington to do that, and I say, hey, we will pay you a lot of money if you can get us this report in the next 5 months. And so instead of just saying, oh, well, we have the report, we're just not going to release it, tee-hee, for the last 6 months, instead, he can just say, we're working on additional fact-finding for the report, and we will release it when the final data comes in, right? You would pay to have this mistake fixed. And I don't really have any other way of reading this on Ken Martin's part other than rank incompetence, not just from his buddy who did this for free, but also from Ken Martin for not immediately trying to rectify this situation and trying to hide it, thinking that it would just never come out. Yeah, he needs to resign. He needs to resign. This is so embarrassing. This isn't incompetence, it's malice. I mean, it is like a particularly malicious level of incompetence, for sure. Electoral landscape, 10 years for a stronger future. While combating an increasingly autocratic and authoritarian government lies at the forefront of the Democratic agenda, our Democratic Party must also develop a plan to carry itself and America beyond 2028. Now, this is an interesting component here to throw in, right? Because this section right here implies that the report has already talked about the DNC's plans to combat an increasingly autocratic and authoritarian government, right? Like, that implies that there was a previous section here talking about the DNC's game plan as it relates to, like, fighting back against the Trump administration. But that doesn't exist in this report, which, if a human had actually constructed this, you would think, oh, it would flow like one point to the next. This report is so badly written, it really does scream AI. Yeah, I'm not bullshitting you guys. I do think this is AI. And guys, you won't believe what the strategy is that this report comes up with. Our Democratic Party must also develop a plan to carry itself in America beyond 2028. It is essential that the Democratic Party develop, organize, and implement a 10-year strategic plan to align the infrastructure, partnerships, and people we need to win. The only way this can be done is if we build to win and build to last. Democrats need a new, forward-thinking electoral strategy focusing on more than who or what is on the ballot and addressing how Democrats can reconnect with Americans at every level across our country. We must organize everywhere to win anywhere. It's like the best plan you've got for current electoral landscape in this section is just do everything everywhere and win everywhere. That's not a plan. That's not a plan. Like, obviously the Democrats should be organizing everywhere that they can, marshaling as much power everywhere that they can. But like, the fact that this is being treated in this report as if it is some grand revelation, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to see. Yeah, we are now 8 pages into this. All this report has offered us is empty slogans, right? It's platitudes. Winning anywhere, and like, this is capitalized for some reason, means providing for a renewed focus on the voters of Middle America and the South, who've come to believe they are not included in the Democratic vision of a stronger and more dynamic America for everyone. Millions of Americans are suffering from poor access to healthcare, manufacturing, and job losses, and a failing infrastructure, yet continue to be persuaded to vote against their best interests because they do not see themselves reflected in the America of the Democratic Party. We can do this because we've done it before. In 1989, after losing 3 straight presidential campaigns, our party refocused the conversation around policy and purpose to reclaim the vital center of American discourse. Understanding the center is where most people live, then DNC Chairman Ron Brown led Democrats out of the political wilderness.
Can we bend over and present wholehearted?
I mean, it's not an unfair question, right?
You have a God-shaped hole.
We are 8 pages in, and it's like, what if we became more centrist? Sure, we're combating an increasingly autocratic and authoritarian government, but what if we became more centrist, though? What if we provided less value to the working folks in the South and the factory towns of the United States? This is so stupid. It was Ron Brown who understood every corner of America was hurting and proclaimed his tenure would be less about race and more about the races we win. God, maybe he wrote this with grog. You know? Ron Brown also challenged the Democratic Party to think about being think and be different. He focused less on pie-in-the-sky narratives and asked the party to get real about the politics of success. Chairman Brown was relentless in his party building, and his optimism inspired others to unify and focus on the end goal, winning the White House again in the face of 3 consecutive defeats, leaving many Americans with a distaste for Democrats and politics in general. Brown was idealistic and practical, and he fought for his beliefs while challenging those who argued it could not be done. Like, I love that, like, this report is championing, like, a centrist who ushered in neoliberalism in the Democratic Party.
It boils my blood that these people come up with the same assigning plan no matter what happens, and now they don't even have the decency to pretend they have a sensible reason. Right?
Like, it's just, hey, ChatGPT, give me an argument for centrist Democratic stances and write it up as a 200-page report. Is literally like the prompt. I wonder if someone could genuinely use ChatGPT and generate this exact same report. I wonder, like, I do genuinely wonder if that is something that someone could do. Like, just reverse engineer whatever fucking prompt led to the creation of this. Like, I don't recommend any of you try to do that, but I'm also gonna say that there's a non-zero chance that could happen here. I'm on it. I'll attempt tonight. Yeah. Under this future-focused directive, Democrats were able to win governor's races in Virginia, mayoral races in New York City, and elect Bill Clinton to the White House in 1992, turning the tide of defeat and ushering in a new era of political achievement. At the expense of working people in America, Bill Clinton did not deliver for working-class Americans. Bill Clinton privatized more shit and just kicked the can down the road, and then left all of us to pick up the bill later on. And that resulted in the 2008 financial crash, and the dot-com bubble, and a lot of other problems. We stopped focusing on race, and started focusing on the races, and it's just like, what? Yeah, but that's how you get Bill Clinton, like, passing bills about super predators. Like, it wasn't good. It wound up being very bad. Finding our way back to this level of success will not be easy, and it will not happen overnight. But the reason we will win is twofold. The first is that we do not plan to advance alone. Winning anywhere is the shared mission and purpose of the DNC and its partners. We will do the hard work to reassess our strategies, our messaging, and our targets, and challenge our partners, including labor and other progressive organizations, to hold us accountable as we move through the next 10 years and beyond. It's just like, I feel Winby!
This is so fucking egregious. They put out third-way shit like this while going on a crusade against Hassan and progressives.
Yep.
The DNC is a fucking joke.
Yep. Winby, thank you for the tier 2 sub. Very much appreciated. But it is a joke, right? Because also, there aren't good arguments in here, you know? The only thing is, okay, so what are you going to do? Well, with our Winning Anywhere initiative, we are going to work with partners. That's the core component of this entire paragraph.
Wait, did it say that in the 90s Dems won the NYC mayoral elections? I remember a distinct oilhead leaking Giuliani during that time.
Yeah, it's I forgot about Rudy Giuliani's head leaking. I forgot about that Four Seasons fiasco. Almost used a Steven Crowder soundbite there. But I restrained myself, because it needs to remain special when I use it. Yeah, we're getting close to unlocking our clown chakras, chat, and that's never a good thing. That was a joke for you brain rot viewers out there. Alright, so, step 1, have friends. Step 2, secondly, once we win, we will ensure our newly elected and re-elected officials move consistently and decisively to instill faith and confidence in the American voting public. The rage of the voters, stoked daily by information silos, talking heads, and even politicians, has contributed to most Americans having a lack of confidence in both parties. Democrats must accept it is more important than to deliver on what they promise, and then make sure our constituents are aware we are fighting for the things they care most about.
So all that we've been sending out the lessons was a bald-faced lie.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely was. Unless Ken Martin cribbed certain elements of this report and repurposed them to use as lessons. Petra Koroma, thank you very much for the 320 yen. Appreciate you. God, an anime sidekick gal, thank you for the $5 super chat. I gotta be honest, you did not need 2 paragraphs to say our strategy to win is have allies, do things once we're elected. But also, just want to point out as well, Democrats must accept it is more important than to deliver, and then make sure, this isn't a sentence. It's not written correctly. I take it back. This wasn't written by AI. It was definitely written by a trust fund baby Harvard grad. Yeah, I went there. Well, a lot has been said here about Paul Rivera. And Paul Rivera wrote this, but he wasn't paid. But he does work as an informal senior advisor at the DNC, but he wasn't paid for the autopsy, and he is apparently not on the DNC's payroll. So my question exactly is, why did Paul Rivera, if he used AI or not, why did he do this? Is it misplaced confidence in his ability to do this for free? Why is he consulting with the DNC for free? What is he seeking to get out of any of this? How does he benefit? It's genuinely baffling to me, and I would love more clear answers, but a lot of the reporting around him is either oh, well, he didn't release any comments. He didn't say nothing. So I guess end of story. But it's kind of I want a reporter to go more in more depth about this relationship between Paul Rivera and the DNC, because this is egregiously terrible, and I want to know why. I want to know why it's this bad, how he got this relationship with the DNC, and like, what does he do and how does he benefit from it? Because if he's working for the DNC but not getting paid, that's really weird. That's especially weird in the world of politics as it exists right now in Washington, D.C., because every consultant gets paid an exorbitant amount of money in politics. And I want to know why this guy seems to be not taking a dime from one of the biggest associations he is connected to. It's very weird. We have to meet this moment with creativity, purpose, and openness. We must align our values with our commitments, with our investments to maximize the impact of our year-round efforts. We must reform our party structure and practices as the means to rebuild and reposition our party to re-earn the trust and confidence of everyday Americans. Like, or this, right? Assessing the state of the party. There are always hot takes after an election, but hot takes will lead to mistakes. If we do not take the time to thoroughly explore what occurred, what worked well, and what should have been done better, we must be careful to draw the right lessons from this experience and not miss opportunities to identify and build upon some of the positives from the 2024 cycle. Yes, many are deeply angry with the outcome of the most recent national election. They feel cheated, abused, and taken advantage of by a broken system. At the same time, we must acknowledge how close the margins actually were. 7,309 votes across three districts decided control of the U.S. House of Representatives. 327,557 votes across 4 states decided the U.S. Senate. And 270,607 votes across 4 states decided the presidency. And the DNC points out here numbers appear inaccurate based on public data. Around 0.2% of all ballots cast for president. So, like, even the DNC is going through this being like, this. Wait a minute, these numbers are horseshit. It is riddled with just fabrications and incorrect citations. But also, another aspect that I find interesting, right? Like, in the kind of structure for typical essay or report writing, you'll usually have, a section that kind of establishes what the structure of the following bits are going to be, right? What is the proposed structure from this first paragraph, right? Hot takes will lead to mistakes if we do not take the time to thoroughly explore what occurred. So, find out what happened, what worked well, and what can be improved on, right? So those are 3 things. And you would expect that you would find those 3 things in the resulting and following sections, right? The paragraphs. We don't really see that. What we see is, oh, well, people are really angry and, it was pretty close in some places, teehee. The 2020 cycle was also very close, a narrow win for the presidency, a narrow Democratic majority in the House, and a tie in the Senate based on a runoff in Georgia. The 2016, this is weird. It's not following the structure it proposes in that opening part. And I propose that this is because it's written by AI, right? You also get some of those subtle, recurrent AI tells. For example, here, yes, many are deeply angry with the outcome of the most recent national election. They feel cheated, abused, and taken advantage of by a broken system. At the same time pops up a lot if you look at AI-generated text. It pops up a lot. And I'm not saying that's a definitive tell, but also listing different things overly much can also be another tell. And so in this particular section, you have a number of different AI tells, and it is not fully comporting with the proposed structure you find in the section above. And that structure further slides the deeper you get into this. And so what I find myself doing when reading this is that I have an English degree. I have a degree in English literature. Like, there are missing words in here. There's grammar that doesn't make sense. There's punctuation that doesn't quite make sense. And a lot of how people frame and make text is into something that flows together. And obviously not everybody does this, but it seems to be a natural human predilection for like making things proceed in a relatively logical order. That's just not happening here. Instead, there's like kind of thought associations, right? Like, for example, when it continues on here, instead of just talking about what happened in 2024, it then creates another, like, oh, this is what happened in 2020. This is what happened in 2026, or 2016, rather. And, actually, when you think about it, 2024 wasn't really different. Also, there's a period missing at the end of this sentence. I don't really know how to make this clear to you guys, but if you are going through and editing your writing, most people would notice a a small, short, single line, multi-sentence construction here, and they would notice that it does not have a period. Most people who are compiling a report for one of the most powerful political bodies in the United States would probably go through and give it at least one editing pass, and that does not appear to have happened here. This is trust fund baby slap. I mean, if it is, I want to know why. Also, 3 different parts with hyphens. Like, I'm not against the use of hyphens, but this is another AI tell, and it's all very close together. Oh, look, here's... How many hyphens are on this page? I'm sorry. I have now been distracted by this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We have 8 hyphens in a very short amount of time. Are those hyphens M dash or N dash? Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to be honest.
It's
I
Liz
don't know.
Trust Fund Baby Cabbage Slop.
There are 291 dashes like that in the document. That's weird. That's weird. Okay, sorry, I must correct myself. These are not hyphens. That's incorrect. These are M dashes. These are M dashes. Hyphens are the regular dash. These are roughly the length of the letter M. You have a hyphen, that's the tiny one. An N dash is the width of a capitalized N, and an M dash is the length of a capitalized M. Right? That's how you can tell the difference. There are 291 N dashes. That is a lot of dashes, though. God damn. Jack, I really hope you see this at any point. But do we have any reactions from serious Democrats? Oh, we do. We do. I have one actually right here from AOC.
Make any big
Congress, have you seen Israel and Gaza aren't mentioned once in the report, the uncommitted movement? What do you make of that?
I think it's pretty unbelievable that that Gaza would not be mentioned once in the autopsy report. I think it was very clearly a major dynamic and a major thread that was happening in 2024. Regardless of how one feels about that issue, the fact that it's not even addressed, I think is a major oversight. And I think that for young people, it was a huge part of the environment. I can tell you for myself as a candidate during that cycle, there's no way that it was an ignorable issue or totally immaterial. So I think that it's a real disservice to not speak to that or include or assess that.
So what do you make of just
like people? I don't think we've really gotten to the point where we're going to see a whole lot of public takes yet. I suspect tomorrow a lot of folks are going to be becoming more and more vocal about their response to this report. It's it's pretty bad. Like, basically anyone who is considering running for president in 2028 is, ripping it apart. Rahm Emanuel even put out a statement saying it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. I don't know. It's pretty bad. But there haven't been a ton of forward-facing responses. Of course, David Hogg also called on Ken Martin to resign. Yeah, just a couple of takes from Politico. Everyone is baffled by the exclusion of Gaza in DNC Autopsy. It's bad when even centrists are like, whoa, Gaza wasn't mentioned one time. And this is made especially weird, by the way, because Paul Rivera, in comments to people prior to the release of this, talked about how the issue of Gaza was a pivotal one in the 2024 race. And I mean, anyone with eyes could have told you that, but that he had data indicating the effect of, the genocide in Gaza on the electorate, right? And in 2024. And so the fact that the guy who allegedly compiled the report and said that there was stuff about Gaza in it, the fact that there's nothing about Gaza in it is very, very weird. It's very strange. But also, a lot of people are really upset about this. The report is so stupid. Let's see, do we have any major movers and shakers in Democratic Party talking about this? We should take this autopsy with a massive grain of salt. Clearly, the people who put it together ran a highly ineffective, ill-researched process. Therefore, it's difficult to draw constructive conclusions, said Adrian Elrod, a senior advisor on the Biden and then Harris campaigns. What's important is what's missing, what they're not releasing, said Ashley Etienne, former communications director of Vice President Kamala Harris. David Hogg called for Martin's resignation when asked in an interview with Politico Thursday, why? Hogg responded, I mean, have you read the report? God, it's devastating. One Democratic operative who worked for the DNC in the Harris campaign called the autopsy a self-inflicted wound and unfortunate given victories in New Jersey and Virginia. Another senior Democratic operative close to the process who was granted anonymity to speak candidly said simply, the report's so stupid, it's hard to make sense why something's in there and why it's not. I'm getting calls from people saying, do I think you should step down? And the answer is no, not at all. The people who are making the biggest fuss are the people who didn't want him in the first place. I'm sorry, but this was literally the most important document to guide Democrats through the 2026 midterms and to shape 2028 presidential runs. Who said that? That was James Zogby, who's a major mover and shaker in the DNC. The entire purpose of this was to shape the future of the Democratic Party over the next several years as we fight through MAGA fascism. And the fact that people are just like, no, it's okay that he fucked up on the biggest job he had to do is really, really wild to me. It is infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. Not every Democrat was upset by the release Thursday. Prominent centrist groups that argue the party has drifted too far to the left found validation in the report. Geez. The people who agree with the idea that Democrats should become more like Republicans, they love this report that says Democrats should become more like Republicans, even though it's written so poorly that that whoever wrote it should never be associated with the DNC or Democrats ever again. That's crazy. Validation and slop, right? Walking on broken glass. God. Yeah, Third Way is really giddy about this report, obviously. Because you know how we were talking about, hey, it's weird that they're going back to 2016 and 2020 instead of talking about 2024. We talked about how that was weird. Let's just go a little bit further into this report. We're rehashing 2008 and Obama for some reason. This is not helpful when performing an autopsy about what happened in 2024. Oh, Here's rehashing 2010. Also, what's crazy is Ken Martin released this annotated version of this, right? Which just has no evidence provided for this claim. And the claim is there was approximately $500 million in outside spending, with Super PAC spending $62.6 million. Why are there no citations for these claims? This is a report. This is meant to help people understand. It should be sourced. It should have links to facts, evidence, etc. And you'll notice that even in the sections that Ken Martin doesn't highlight, we have a lot of other claims that are just not being tested for their veracity. Is there a bibliography? Well, none of this is linked to. In it, there aren't, annotations, there aren't citations. You could say that there are supposed to be at the end, and again, look, we're now going on to page 17, and we are only now hitting what happened in 2024. Also, even simple things. Democrats netted 2 seats in the House, flipping 10 seats from the Republicans while losing 8. Data appears to be inaccurate and contradicts public reporting. We're getting this is basic shit that is being absolutely mangled. Recap. Every election cycle since 2008 has reflected an increasing polarization in our national politics, with narrowing margins determining control in each successive cycle. Analysis not supported by publicly available data. And it's not then cited later in non-publicly available data. It's the future, stupid. No sourcing provided for several claims in this section. This appears to conflate family and sick leave. This was a blatant attempt by the Republican power base to take advantage of name recognition and tough economic conditions to push through an unqualified candidate whose job would have been a little more than rubber stamping the president's agenda. And the fact that in an autopsy report of the 2024 election, the DNC has to step in and point out what years Biden was president, this is AI slop. This is AI garbage. This is not whose annotations, Ken Martin and the DNC. To Ken Martin's credit, I suppose, he did have someone go through this and point out where the fabulations were, a report should have data. A report should have citations. A report should be it should be more coherent than this. A report of this level of importance should not be flubbing who was president in 2022, especially when it's made for the DNC. And I wanted to really just hammer this home to you. I know that I've probably established this 20 minutes ago, that this was made with AI, that this is all dog shit. But really needed to hammer home, we got nothing. Now, I do want to point out, okay, that on page 19, despite the fact that we have had many, many, many claims of data presented so far, on page 19, we see our first citation. It's right here. As the Brennan Center has reported, and as seen in the figure below, it is possible for up to 12 congressional seats and electoral votes to shift from states like California, New York, and Illinois to Texas, Florida, Utah, and Idaho in the next reapportionment after the 2030 census. 1, right? So we go down to the bottom. Here we are. And there's also a second citation. Both citations are for the same thing. These are the first citations in this entire thing. And then we get another section here where we have additional citations for also both the same, right? They both link to this article that is 15 years old, and when we go through and look at, hey, how is it cited on this page versus how it was cited on this page, it's very different because AI clearly made this. We gonna look at the sources section? Yeah. All right. What happened? Electoral review. Pending. Entire sections just missing. I am baffled by this. Appears to me missing Delaware is an actual note from the DNC. Someone's telling me to go look at page 75. But, like, the citations keep coming thicker and thicker as the claims begin to mount throughout this, right? And, of course, there are continuing to be missing sections. And, let's go to page 75. The conclusion of the entire autopsy report wasn't included. They never got the conclusion of the autopsy. There's no conclusion, guys. Imagine if this was like an actual autopsy, right? Imagine if this was the actual autopsy. We cut them open, boys, and, we don't know what the hell's going on in there. I'm not even a trained medical doctor. Anyway, thanks for letting me see inside the body of a now dead guy. Hey! So many claims. No source material or data provided. No sourcing provided for this claim. No evidence provided. Contradicts publicly reported data. No evidence. No sourcing. No evidence. You know what? Back, let's see. No evidence. No evidence is cited 47 times throughout this. There are 47 claims made throughout this that just aren't true. No sourcing. Yeah, no source material or data provided. 67 on no sourcing, no source. Like, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of, like, just missing citations or erroneous claims. That's almost one per page. Yeah, it's genuinely terrible. And it's actually worse than that because many of these pages are being left blank with just nothing provided. Incredible. It's truly breathtaking. No, the data showed no evidence provided for this claim. I can't, man. Heads need to roll for this. People need to lose their jobs. Honestly, people need to lose their jobs and, like, lawsuits need to be launched against, like, this rank level of incompetence. The final page of this document is the source page. Empirical claims in the DNC After Action report are based on publicly available evidence and are accompanied by a hyperlink to evidence supporting the claim. They are absolutely not. In addition, a traditional bibliography can be found here. No, it can't. And more data is provided in the appendix below. There isn't an appendix below. We supplemented the publicly available data by interviewing more than 12,000 Democrats across all 57 state parties and territories. Where the fuck is that data? Where are those 12,000 interviews? Yeah, but my point is, the appendix is, and the appendices are not below the very last section. I guess my point is that when we're talking about, this is the last thing that you put in here. And it's saying you're going to find more shit below it. It's the last thing. Where are the surveys with 5,000 DNC members? Literally none of this was provided along with this report. Yeah, and the appendices are not provided by the author. So, and conclusion, also not provided by the author. Everyone in charge of the DNC should resign. Everyone involved in this should lose their jobs. Honestly, mind blown. The fact that there are even some people who are like, it's not too bad. Let Ken Martin have his job. He's just a little guy. We need better than just a little guy. We need better than just a little birthday boy. We need someone who can actually do this fucking job. This is a failing paper at any university. I'll go a step further. This is beyond just a failing paper at any university. This would be maybe grounds for expulsion at any reputable university. Like, this is a level of incompetent AI slop that could genuinely, like, get you kicked out. This is a failing essay in middle school. Well, that's why the entire name of this stream is A Dog Ate the Democrats' Homework. Because that's exactly what this is. Like, every person in a position of leadership at the DNC needs to lose their fucking job. You know, like, every Democrat in a position of leadership in the DNC needs to lose their job. And you know what? Like, fucking Cincinnatus, like, whoever's left at the DNC as interim chair needs to call up Ben Wickler. Okay, whatever he's doing in Wisconsin, maybe he has a beet farm or something. I don't know what he's up to these days. Call up Ben Wickler and say, it's time, brother. We need you. We need you to marshal your troops and march to Washington. Like, that is what's necessary at this time. We could have had a better future where the DNC actually mobilized for, like, open political warfare with Republicans under Ben Wickler. And instead we got Ken Martin, and Ken Martin has just been a soggy sack of dog shit the entire time.
GOP. Dems are a competent sociopathic party that is actually bringing socialism to this country. Dems.
Yeah, like, man, I fucking wish Democrats had the level of competence attributed to them by Republicans. No one wants soggy bagels in the morning. True. Anyway, I'm blindingly enraged by this. And if you are too, get involved in your local Democratic Party so we can kick these fuckers out. Get involved in your local Democratic Party. Start being a mover and shaker there, and, like, cut off the political career for any of these incompetent fuckwads to be ever able to climb the ladder to power ever again. Join your DSA, mobilize labor in your area, because god damn it, do we need more people organized? Because, like, this is a level of incompetence that is unforgivable. This is a level of incompetence that, like, if we lived in different times, Ken Martin would, as a point of honor, go out in front of the nation and commit seppuku. Like, that's the level of scandal here. And there is no actionable information in here. When we talk about, like, oh, Gaza isn't even mentioned in here, it's because there's no accurate, actionable information. It has wasted everybody's time. And the DNC has wasted everybody's time. And it has, in particular, wasted the time of people who put blood, sweat, and tears into trying to make the Democratic Party function as a vehicle to fight the Republican fascist moment. And I'm so angry about this, guys. It is one of those moments where, like, we need to get these people out of power. We need to get them out. We need to ensure that there is accountability for whatever the fuck happened here. And we need, like, I'm very curious over the next several days, how are people going to respond to this? How are Democrats going to respond to this? Because right now I think there is a period of confusion today in the initial release of this. I think that confusion is quickly going to turn to white hot rage. There is no way that I see this scandal becoming a non-issue in the Democratic Party. 8 years of work and this guy has the gall to release this, right, Dragonfly? God. If you guys need help joining your local Dems and some advice on how to effectively combat the Ken Martins that may exist in your local Democratic groups, join our Discord, reach out to Gamergy for help with your local DSA, and reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. We need to take the fight not just from outside looking in to the DNC, we need to take the fight into the DNC. You know, part of the problem with the Ben Wickler attempt to become like chair of the DNC was that Ben Wickler didn't have enough progressive fighter support for him within the DNC. We need to change that terrain as quickly as fucking possible. And the way to do that is to get involved with your local Democratic group. Because they sure as shit, people like Ken Martin aren't going to listen to people outside of the party. They're not going to listen to people outside of the power structure. We need to break into that power structure and force them to listen. And if necessary, shout them down with our political might. So join your local Dems, join your local DSA. We'll help you. Okay? Reach out. We'll help you. And folks, got anything out of this? Hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment letting us know exactly how you feel about Ken Martin and this egregiously incompetent autopsy report. And last but not least, folks, check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. And I will say, one of the few positive points in anything I talked about in this particular section. So, you know, everything might suck right now, but Imogene Olivia underwear doesn't. I'm wearing it right now. It's super comfortable. So, you know, check it out. ImogeneOlivia.com, link down in the doobly-doo. And let's keep on going.
Riverboat deck is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.